Thank you very much, dear participants, for joining our webinar. Good morning to European, Middle East, Africa, and good afternoon, of course, to the Asia region, New Zealand, Australia, or Japan. So we really appreciate your valuable time this morning, how the world of additive manufacturing are fighting due to the COVID crisis. My main messages today will be how 3D printing components bridge the gap worldwide in the hospitals, and the medical device OEMs, or industry supplier, or in other organizations. So further, how additive manufacturing could be implemented as a decentralized, local, on-demand manufacturing method, or how the future supply chain could look like. Also, I would like to show up you opportunities to produce sustainable 3D printing components. Our hour together are split in two sections. First, we will start with the topic Bridge and Adapt. I will tell you our experience, how EOS and the AM industry was facing to this past over of months. And then we have a short interactive session. So how was you facing in your region the crisis, or maybe are you still in? Were there any circumstances what you were facing of? So we're really happy to get your insights. Also looking forward, appreciating sharing your experience, how you was facing the past months. After this section, we will continue with our part Accelerate and Sustain, how 3D printing technologies apart for production method of Industry 4.0 could be implemented maybe after the crisis, or in my personal feeling, I hope not, potentially preparing before a second wave might come up. If we go 3 months back, and looking into the fact, this source was from BIS research, and you can see on the left side the gap of volume between typical supply volumes, what was upcoming in demand in April this year. So there's a gap missing of 3 billion of masks. Imagine clinical profession, surgeon, nurses, employees, administrative employees in the hospital had no access to get protected by this virus. Also impressive number of face shield what need to be used. It's an 800% increasing in comparison to the previous year. And BIS research determined factors leading to the supply crunch. It was first centralization of production. So somewhere in the world, these components are supplied, there might be any shutdown. So there is a deep dependence on manual laboratory to close of facilities. So the pandemic was a delayed process in the several regions. So it starts from the east, and after a few months it went to Europe, to the west, and also craftsmanship in this region are not available, or maybe are ill, or would be put under self-protection to save other employees. The model of just-in-time manufacturing, so always the same quantities, restriction on border, what we have seen due to this crisis. There were borders, there were long traffic lines, and trucks cannot go into other regions, specific on the European countries. And there were also a recommendation from the government side to ship for what's not allowed anymore, to ship any protection equipment to other countries where it's immediately needed. So really challenging time was upcoming, and in this time 3D printing provides an option to overcome the supply-demand gap. If we're looking beside of PPE components, more to high medical risk products, there were also announcement of the potential number of ventilators demands. So we're talking about a high risk class medical device. These components are developed under a strong reglementation, high standards, verified, validated, high testing standards and facility environment what needs to be considered. So, you know, this device has to be effective during respirating a deceased patient under a 100% condition. So many companies was not able to react in a short way, ramp up their production to this needed amount. So there might need is a rate to treat patients potentially infected. Certainly you might emergency tent hospitals in the several location. So setting up an additional infrastructure for a higher potential rate of infection to treat people. So these hospitals, you know, need to be equipped in a short time. Mobile hospitals, whole infrastructures has to be created, like electric cabinets, oxygen supply, intensive or general clean under constant conditions. So specific in Europe, you remember the uncertainness of needed beds to treat potentially heavily diseased COVID-19 patients. Let me say, it's only a small overview. So there were much more application where 3D printed components was provided. So how Dramatica was the same way creative. Look, if you look into in the middle of this slide, so this swimming goggle, there were no other typical equipment available, and they needed to be creative to provide here to modify a swimming goggle to use it for treating patients. Also, many components like manual breathing components. So there were a Facebook group created. There were up to 75,000 members in this group, and they shared their ideas, their thoughts, they provided their capacities to print several components. So really amazing what was ongoing in the past. Also masks, typical, specific like these. This was printed with an industrial powder bed fusion technology. The first several thousand components of this mask frame was printed, and then if the higher when the higher demand was upcoming, they started to go into injection molding technologies. So they're using additive manufacturing technologies to print the mold and to prepare it for inject then for the thermoplastics. Swaps also, due to the current situation, there is an upcoming need of testing. So it's not, from my perspective, it's not a typical 3D printed component, but we see that this technology in this time of demand could be a solution, and it shows already in the several regions. This kind of components, on example, were 40,000 times provided to a hospital in Spain, in Madrid, where testing was required, and we had similar parallel go to the clearance and to get a specific approval for this. There were also other cases like in Netherlands, in Belgium, also Australia, South America, similar projects where components like these are started to 3D printed. And like this adapter to split its component to split the supply of oxygen for two patients. This is a typical injection molded part. So during this time, there were a gap of spare parts, of needed components, and it was started to print to provide this kind of components to enable doctors to share one device for two patients. So many also here in the United States, spare parts for respiratory components or mid-term intermediate use components, and also exciting ideas. Maybe if you think about the contamination, the risk when opening a door, all of the hygienic recommendation, what we should do. On the end, we use the hand to open a door. Maybe it might be also a lovely opportunity into the future, how we need to change our behavior to prevent potential contamination. Let me say in the office, at schools, at public areas, this might be also a nice opportunity. So this is an impressive number. So these numbers are from end of March until April. There were approximately 4 million components, additive manufactured, provided to the point of care. So if you're an engineer, you know how complex it is to design a component, to validate parts, to make the first iterations, to provide prototypes, and on the end to qualify the process. And these numbers are really amazing how this community was reacting, and it's a typical mindset of this rapid prototyping community, what it was over the past, to provide goods here in a short, effective way. So it's, and from my personal perspective, these components was directly provided to the hospital. So doctors, nurses got a product on their demand. And similar on this way, we noticed also a kind of acceptance of this new technology using for several components. So we have seen an impact on a global manufacturing, and these numbers here is a map how this supply chain are currently production or have the most output. Of course, we have the work bank in Asia. It's a high amount where approximately 50% of goods are supplied. Also, the US market and the European side has a good percentage. So we see in general it was created over a long decade, over 10s, 50, 100s of years to make this analog to model. So what about thinking about from the analog to a digital value chain? So we are under a monolithic supply chains, what you see here, into a flexible distributed manufacturing network. So from global optimized, maybe also to a more responsible manufacturing way. So how an economical system works. So it was created based on a mega scale. So we have a worldwide trade. We are shipping 100,000 of containers, physical goods over the world. The IP is sitting somewhere. We have an OEM, a manufacturer. Maybe we have a contract manufacturer beside. There are goods produced, and later on it will be distributed to a warehouse or into an inventory, and then we have retailers and on the end customers, what would be also the hospitals. And what is happening if one of these dots are interrupted due to an uncertainness what was currently upcoming? So might it be a solution when you think about tomorrow's distributed global manufacturing and supply chain? If we have a digital model, we have worldwide, local, decentralized manufacturing units, cells, and to providing this in a micro scale on the local needs and just providing a digital design. And I want now to show you how 3D printing technologies going already into this direction. So there might be also, if you think about after the crisis, under the economical situations, there were a rule of shutdowns in the several nations and countries. It might be also a risk that potential suppliers might go into insolvency, bankrupt, and or potentially replace non-profit goods into more profitable goods, and this could be potentially impact also your supply chain. 3D printing additive manufacturing is already established in the medical field. So there are specific areas like orthopedic implants where several kind of components are provided to the OEM, to the hospitals. There's also upcoming trend of personalized surgeries. So customized PSI implants, PSI instruments. There is also ongoing the trend of bioprinting, tissue engineering, resorbable materials, also pharmaceutical components. If you think about vaccines, what's currently needed, maybe there are specific machines, equipment components needed, and this could be also provided, and 3D additive manufacturing could be also here a suitable way to being more innovative and faster on time. Also aids like orthesis, prosthesis. So we are here also in a customized field where we use our technologies specific to design, to adapt components to the patients. So the benefits of additive manufacture, medical. Here's an example of use cases. It provides specific in terms concerning individualization. It provides, you have freedom of design to print any digital component, what you need. Also to optimize surgery outcome, an example. For the metal like titanium implants, we can use lattice structures, three-dimensional structures, also to get an additional benefit, like increasing the surface volume or potentially improving osseointegration. There is a high benefit also to make a functional integration in several components. If you see here, this kind of diagnostic component. If you are in this field, you might imagine there are several components what need specifically to assemble, and we can print this as once, and it prevents complex assembly. It reduces time during this, potential cost saving, also in terms of tools and logistics. And if you have a high variability such of components or a low volume, this kind of manufacturing using 3D printing technologies could be really effective. Also the materials, here specific a case from disposable instruments. This is operating over 10 years. So currently they are operating across 500 industrial printers worldwide to provide such of cutting guides, drilling guides, and this runs now since 2009. So during over 60 decades, there is already also a high acceptance using 3D printing polymer materials. There are benefits in a short lead time to provide such components. Also, it's a way of simplification, how to eliminate several procedures during surgery, and there is also a cost efficiency in the theater, in the hospital when doing the surgery, but also potentially on the OEM side. This is also from a company in North America. We have a quick delivery time, and you see here maybe the similarity why the 3D printing technologies was so effective over the last months. And many of you know how many, like an instrumentation tray, such kind of instrument kit. It has a lot of components what need to be supplied to the hospital. You have to increase the volume. So you have to prepare a Kanban inventory, and you see here that's a potential when using this surgery kits just specific for one patient, to provide this in one build shop and shipping out this kind of components after 3 days to the next post-processing component, like sterile cleaning, sterilization, or packaging. So there is all specific in a certain area of orthopedics, and it could be also transferred to other sections like medical device, medical equipment, labor diagnostic. We already produce off-the-shelf components for the orthopedic market. This example is a tabular cup. They use the high porous lattice structures for potentially more bone growth. It's also the kind of design depending on the clinical outcome. It could be varying, and it could be also differentiation to the competitors. It reduces the lead time as compared to conventional coating, a blank component on example. Also customized implants, where also is a short-term need to treat people after a heavy accident or suicide trial, to provide a patient-specific implant here in a short way. So there are already many examples where this technology are beneficial. This is our thought what we have during this crisis. We set up open platform. It's a 3D against Corona, and I would like to bring this as an example. What about a digital inventory in general? If you're a large company and you have many subsidiaries worldwide located in the medical cluster, why not provide a digital model to your subsidiary, maybe in North America or maybe in Japanese, to bring their upcoming demand to supply goods to the hospital. Another idea where the full potential of 3D printing could be effective, a scan to print solution for kind of mass customization. If you imagine, maybe you have the picture still in mind where doctors, nurses, and they had skin operations due to the long time of using their protection equipment. This could be also customized, specific to the contour of the doctor to make it individual, a better fitting potentially. Or also the needs of mask, an example, in a number of billions, and it's a disposable material, and you have to waste it after a certain time, and it's only for one use. Why not think about reusing components? And this case are from North America, and together with an additional partner from software and production side, they immediately scaled up here a monthly demand of 5 to 7 million disposable masks. So why is additive manufacturing a driver of a disruptive innovation? You see here a screen from a build shop, and it shows the freedom of manufacturing. You have here an example, just a turbo impeller for the automotive industry. You have components potentially for oil and gas or aerospace components, and it's independently from the model itself. You just can put it into the machine and print specific parts, and with no equivalent design. So we have the freedom of design, the production of complex geometries, and it has also an effect of rapid innovation concerning lead times. So if you remind also the picture of the mask, so the first several thousand was bridged with 3D printing technologies, and on the same way there are a metal tool printed and then provided to the ramp-up production. And an additional driver could be also why 3D printing might become disrupted, the next generation of engineers. So there is a much higher perception from the younger engineers. They are now in the university and learning the different manufacturing technologies. And traditionally, it's mainly related the kind of method how to produce components, but it might be also to think about the functional design, how might the product look like for the usage. So additive manufacturing has a positive impact during to this crisis, and I personally believe behind those 3D printed components bridged the demand gap worldwide in the hospital, medical device industry, and suppliers, and it has a potential to enable a digital, local, decentralized, and on-demand manufacturing